Am I the butthole for serving vegan food at my wedding? My fiancé and I are getting married in June next year. We're both vegans, and although we don't judge those who are not vegan, we wanted to serve vegan food at our wedding. We found a vegan caterer. When we sent out invitations, we added a note saying that the food will be vegan. We also asked that everyone who has any specific dietary requirements let us know. The note made it clear that anyone who needed a specific diet would be catered for. Soon after the invitations went out, my aunt phoned us in a huff. My uncle does not want vegan food, he needs to eat meat, she said. I asked what his dietary requirements are, thinking that he has a specific medical condition and cannot eat a vegan meal. She said his reasons are cultural and he must eat meat. I said that's not really a good enough reason, we all come from the same culture and it's not like it's a sin to not eat meat with every single meal. I explained to her that I wouldn't really mind him eating meat, but one, it means I'll have to bring in a new caterer for one meal, which will be expensive, and two, I don't want to pay for meat if I don't have to. Again, I'm not judging non-vegans, but it doesn't sit right with me. Weeks went by. The only people who had dietary requirements were 3 cousins, who eat a low-carb diet. My vegan caterer came up with vegan, low-carb meals, and my cousins were happy with this plan. Upon hearing this, my aunt phoned me again, angrier this time, asking why my uncle can't be catered for because he doesn't like vegan food. I refused again. I told her that the food consists of things I know he eats anyway: vegetables, coconut, nuts, etc. I went through a list of ingredients I knew would be in the food, and she admitted he has no intolerances/allergies to any of that stuff. What's the big deal with him skipping meat one time? I told her that if he's so adamant about the meat, he can buy himself McDonald's and eat it at the kiddie table. Now my aunt isn't talking to me, and is instead talking crap about me to all my family members. I told her that they are welcome to simply not attend the wedding if they're going to bitch about the food. I understand that veganism is not possible or sustainable for many people in the long term, but come on, it's one meal that is free. AITA? I don't want to seem like a pushy vegan, but I also don't want to pay for meat unless I have to. Again, it's one meal out of their whole life. NTA. Like you said, it is one meal and it's free. And most importantly, it is your wedding. Exactly. Would it make sense to go to an Indian wedding and fuss that you're not served tamales or cheeseburgers? How many weddings has the original host attended and had to make do with a side salad and a little dish of green beans that she hopes weren't cooked with bacon? A vegan caterer is going to know how to make something that is filling and tasty to the vast majority of people. It'll be fine. How many weddings has the original host attended and had to make do with a side salad and a little dish of green beans that she hopes weren't cooked with bacon? As a vegetarian, the answer is a lot. My parents have been vegetarians almost 50 years and we still have to make do with chips, dessert, and sometimes a crafty deli bean salad at family gatherings while the meat eaters got decent meals. It's obnoxious. One of my vegan friends was so touched by her grandma last year at Thanksgiving. She made sure my friend had plenty to eat and at one point yelled across the kitchen at someone who was about to put butter in the corn. I wish it was like that for everyone. An older woman was peeking in my grocery cart the other day and asked if the ice cream I had was vegan. She has a granddaughter who is vegan and didn't know what to get her for dessert on Thanksgiving. It is so refreshing that Grandma wanted to include her grandbaby in everything, instead of making a fuss about a $4 pint of ice cream. I also directed her to the vegan apple pies, Mrs. Smith's crumble-topped apple pie. Given none of my relatives went vegan, but my great-grandmother catered to all her grandchildren's dietary needs, making special batches of rugelach in a nut-free environment for her grandsons. My grandmother did the same with food for all the special diets in our family. She also made my favorite foods and dropped them off to me when I was in college for a year, including extras to share with friends. One of my grandfather's cousins learned how to make jackfruit brisket to cater to their vegetarian child and grandchildren. There is something about grandmothers and feeding people. I have found from sharing houses with other people, some people's way of caring for others is to cook them food. It's loving, you're providing your loved ones with nourishment. It's true, I personally hate cooking, I have ADHD and struggle with motivating myself to do basic tasks, but when my friend was returning to her home country on a 6 a.m. flight and I knew she probably didn't have dinner before our 1 a.m. journey to the airport, I escorted her because having a local escort you to the first round of security, These people who ask you a few of questions about what you've been doing in the country, if you packed your own bag, etc., before the check-in counter helps you clear secondary security, are equivalent of the TSA, quicker. I made handmade cavatelli and, what my mom called, froscia, egg and breadcrumb patties made from what's left over when you fry something, in this case homemade chicken nuggets, packed it for the train journey and surprised her with home-cooked Italian food. I'm a weird mix of Jewish and Italian. I did it because I cared and wanted to at least make her last night in the country special. That is such a nice thing to do for your friend. In Australian we call what you cooked, the eggs with whatever leftovers you have, bubble and squeak, not sure why, but it is what it is. Eggs are a fantastic food especially if you're hungover. It's only the leftover eggs and breadcrumbs from frying so it's not really the same thing. I used to work as a nanny for an Australian family here. I did it for my friend because I know she would have done the same for me. My grandma made my dad drive 20 minutes to leave a huge tub, half-a-gallon sherbet container, of vegetable soup on my porch after I tested positive for COVID last week even though I told her I was fine. It was still warm. Lol. Honestly, that's such a grandma thing to do. Whenever my grandma went out of town without my grandpa, she left him homemade meals that she cooked and froze. After his stroke, I forget how old I was when he had the first stroke, I was assigned the responsibility of taking him out for walks. He wouldn't let the adults do it, but grandkids were fine, in general, but my job was even more important when she was away. I was at most 11 or 12 when after one of our walks my grandpa asked me to go with him to the grocery store to help him read the labels. I stupidly went with him. If he needed my help to read, maybe he shouldn't have been driving. To find out the issue was he had no food in the house. When I got home I told my dad what happened and we made him an entire salmon. I talked to my grandma after she returned and she told me she had made him enough frozen meals for her entire trip. It turns out he had been eating 2 frozen meals per meal. My grandmother deliberately leaves onion out of bolognese for me. Grandmothers are the best. Mine passed away in 2018 and was shocked that while she was in hospice I flew 5,974 miles one way for a weekend trip to see her before she passed away. I had been out of the country for 8 months at that point and she was diagnosed with cancer after I had left the country. Sure, she wasn't perfect and was toxic at times, but she still practically raised us half the time, so that my dad could get more work done at the office, after my parents got divorced, so obviously I wanted a chance to say goodbye. She became a grandmother figure to several of my brothers and my friends over the years, always willing to cook more food in order to have friends over for dinner. Hell, she even gave her cleaning people's granddaughter presents. I learned of that the summer after she passed away because I arranged my availability at work to allow me to play video games with their 8-year-old granddaughter while they cleaned my dad's house after discovering that their granddaughter had to come to work with them over the summer. I set up a gaming area in the basement with tons of snacks and kept her entertained. Her grandparents, my dad and grandmother's cleaning people, weren't surprised by this because apparently my actions reminded them of my grandma. My mother's side of the family are from a meat-heavy culture. An ex was vegetarian and I had let them know in advance. They panicked. Somehow got it into their heads he was vegan and I spent a lot of time explaining it was easier than that, just leave off the meat and gelatin. My aunt still made me check the packet of vegetable stock to make sure he could eat it, lol. 15 years later they are all flexitarian as the culture has adapted, but it was funny at the time. What's flexitarian? Like a mostly vegetarian that sometimes has a treat steak? I don't mean to be rude here, just never heard of the term honestly. The flexitarians that I know only eat meat when it's out of convenience, so they live largely plant-based, but when the menu at an event or family gathering is meat-based they'll eat it, for example. This is mostly the lifestyle that I adopt, but I wouldn't call myself flexitarian, I just don't eat loads of meat. A flexitarian is a person who has a primarily vegetarian diet but occasionally eats meat or fish. Flexitarian usually means you have some days/meals where you eat vegetarian, and others where you eat meals with meat. It might be a structured thing, so half the week it's one, half the other, or it might be that you're making a conscious effort to reduce your meat consumption, so just making meat-free meals a few times a week. How vegetarian you are will depend on the person, as some people might be about 50-50, others a bit more skewed towards one diet or the other. Ah, interesting. This is the diet I've just adopted recently. Never knew it had a name, but I'm trying to reduce meats, especially red meat. I tried a vegan diet, for a challenge to myself, for one whole week, and while a lot of the food was really nice, I had urges to devour some meat. So I've gone for a balanced approach, take days off from meat and have a vegetarian day, etc., but I'm not skipping things completely. For example, if a snack contains meat fats, I'll still eat it. Don't want to be strict, just want to reduce that chunk of meat on your main meals now and then. All my life I've had meats on almost every meal, but it should be better to let your system rest without it, now and then, right? As someone who went vegan cold tofu, after 3 to 4 weeks those urges pretty much go away. It's a combination of taste buds and gut flora adapting, cooking skills increasing, and of course thinking about the suffering involved with that piece of meat. In my case, after several years unsweetened soy milk tastes similar to cow's milk, some mushrooms taste like what I remember chicken tasted like. Raw veggies taste great as a snack. Barbecue seitan ribs taste like ribs, etc. Obviously when someone else tries these meals I make, they don't think it tastes similar at all, although they do enjoy the flavor. It's good food. My point is that a lot of the vegan alternatives you might not enjoy so much now will become very enjoyable after a while. I think it means they only eat big chains and Avisu jeans. NTA. Your wedding for one thing. If people don't want to eat vegan, they simply don't have to eat the free meal. And this is coming from a meat-eating guy. Omnivores can eat vegan meals. Vegans can't eat meals with meat. Can't versus don't. Need versus want. But not the butthole. It really depends. If you haven't eaten meat in a long time, the results can be less than pleasant. Yep. I'm not a vegetarian or vegan by any stretch, but my mentor, she's pretty much my mom, went vegan around 15 years ago. She gets very, very sick if she eats most meat. Fish is fine in most situations, but I believe she said it has to do with her body having gotten used to not having had a lot of the things that are standard in meat, like animal fats, in such a long time. Edit. My mentor eats meat or fish maybe once or twice a year, as she is vegan for health reasons, not because she takes issue with eating animals. If she does get fish or chicken, it has to be cooked in some way devoid of stuff that'll upset her stomach, like fryer grease. Can confirm. I had started to drop meats from my diet and fish was the last one. Then I ate a meat burger. The next day was a crap show. I was lucky my job was cleaning toilets. A literal crap show. Many vegans actually can't. I live with a chronic illness, and my quality of life significantly improved after I went vegan. There's a ton of people who go vegan for their health. Not all, and likely not even most, but it's still a significant number in my experience. Not to mention, if you eat animal products after being vegan for a long time, your body is like to reject it. Often violently. Also, NTA. Nice to see a post where, for once, people aren't just crapping on vegans lol. Hey, if it's not too personal, can you tell me a little about your transition to veganism while living the spoonie life? I'm new to the chronically ill fam and have wanted to be vegan for ethical purposes, but I can barely stand and cook and I'm worried I won't be able to keep it up on days I'm flaring really badly. Hey, of course. I went vegan when I was 17-ish. So about 8 years ago. I'm not sure what you're living with, but I have fibromyalgia, which means lots of pain and fatigue, especially on flare days. Honestly, before I moved in with my boyfriend 3 years ago, I was underweight because the motivation to get up and get food was overridden by the pain and fatigue. It often still is, but my boyfriend cooks and brings me food now, smiling face with hearts. I was underweight before going vegan as well, so I guess that isn't super relevant. As far as transitioning, I found it easiest to just switch cold turkey, so to speak. One day not vegan, the next fully vegan. I keep the house stocked with easy, high-protein snacks, like nuts. Sometimes we will make a big batch of something, like poke bowls with tofu, that will last for several days. Keep easy meals around the house, like pasta, for days when you don't feel good. You can even make and freeze things like soup, so all you have to do is throw it in the microwave. Being vegan definitely doesn't mean you have to make a bunch of intricate meals. The key to any healthy diet is balance over time, and if some days you end up eating packaged frozen dinners, many American stores have vegan ones, then oh well. You do what you have to do, when your body is on the attack. Let me know if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer. We found a recipe for lentil shepherd's pie, veggie not vegan, but if you used cashew cheese and made mashed potatoes without butter or milk it would be, and we make 2 at a time and freeze some. So handy to have a freezer meal that's also homemade and very tasty. If you had freezable oven-friendly dishes it would be even faster. I don't know how chronic illnesses work, but if you have good days could be handy to make meals like vegan lasagnas and pasta dishes to put in the freezer so you have an alternative to frozen meals. Some of them are really good, but some of them can be pretty gross. I am not a vegan, but I was a vegetarian for many years, and since I've started eating meat again, it really messed with my digestive system. I still don't eat pork as a result. Don't versus may not to. Want versus moral imperative. Still NTA. NTA. My cousin served vegan food at her wedding. It was delicious. Your aunt is being a pain. Yeah, I'm going to a wedding next year where the bride and groom aren't vegan and are opting to serve curries from a local vegan place because they are delicious. Uncle probably has a lack of imagination on what vegan food might be. Yeah, he is basically being a big baby. I find it really dull, to be honest. I'm not vegan, but I get really bored when people are like, vegan cakes? What are they made of? Lettuce? Etc. It's just jokes ran into the ground. It's just jokes ran into the ground and then you double down by coming on Reddit? True masochist. Props. God tell me about it, this sub in particular. And yet here I stay. That's why I thought the eating McDonald's at the kiddie table comment was absolutely on point. What really gets me is that not only is he being a petulant child about one meal, but it's his wife who is calling and begging for changes on his behalf. I picture him at the wedding poking at the meal with his fork to make his, but there's not a big slab of meat. Point known. Regardless of how good the meal will likely be, he seems the type to be completely shut down about it just because it has the label of being vegan. Op and fiancé are both vegan, so it stands to reason that's the food their wedding would have, and a vegan caterer will know how to make a satisfying vegan meal. Carnivore uncle can deal for a day, or buy a rack of ribs to eat in the car beforehand. NTA. And the uncle isn't even the one calling to request special treatment, it is the aunt. If this is such a huge deal for uncle, why doesn't he speak up? Using the aunt as a middleman is either lazy, or she is the one that has the problem. I'm really not surprised by that part at all. It's incredibly common for men who see themselves as too manly for vegan food to also see all family emotional/logistical management as women's work, and plenty of women were raised the same way, so they're just used to it. And don't forget, sorry, uncle, but we only have vegan beer. Edit. Thanks for the silver and awards. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.